I've interacted with some fairly intense people online in recent years. Trolls, incels, hackers, social activists, even Trump supporters. But I can honestly say that some of the most aggressive people I've ever encountered online are Taylor Swift fans. These creatures are among the stroppiest, most humorless, nail-spitting, all-caps swearing, histrionic, oversensitive and unrelenting on the planet, and I fully understand that this video will succumb to a deluge of downvotes and strident comments. But I thought it worthwhile, in spite of that, to explain how Taylor Swift, an accomplished professional, great role model, philanthropist, and no doubt great person with a clearly strong work ethic, is so painfully poor and limited as a songwriter. Before you jump on your phone, face contorted in incredulous disgust, frenetically sending messages to your TikTok followers that you've happened upon a disgusting video on YouTube, uploaded by a toxic misogynist who no doubt hates to see women succeed, allow me to explain this from a technical, musical perspective. Music is made up of chords, and when chords that work together are played as a group of 4 or so, this is called a chord progression. The most common of these loops, the most overused, stale, worn out, and unimaginative, is this chord progression. This chord progression is often used by teenagers starting out with songwriting because the chords share a lot of notes, and it's the most obvious, plain progression, requiring the least amount of imagination or effort. Imagine there are thousands of shades of color, and you only ever use blue, red, yellow, and green. That's what this chord progression is. Now, there's nothing wrong with musical acts using this once, maybe twice, tops. But Taylor Swift uses it so often that I've become worried for the personal safety of these chords. In fact, I think the chord progression ought to take a restraining order out on Taylor Swift to protect themselves from being harassed by her. Let's look at an example. This is the song All Too Well. Now, this is totally fine. It's a classic example of how to use that chord progression, done tastefully, with good lyrics and arrangement. But here's where the problem begins. This is the song Champagne Problems.
Dropped your hand while dancing, left you out there standing, crestfallen on the land in champagne problems.
Exactly the same chord progression, at more or less the same tempo, in the same key. Now, let's layer them on top of each other.
Dropped your hand while dancing, left you out there standing, crestfallen on the land in champagne problems.
Okay, well, let's be open-minded and recognize that Taylor Swift has had a long and storied career, and if she used the same chord progression twice, it's not the end of the world. It's just important that she didn't use it a third time, because that would be... Okay. Now, in this song, the chords run for twice as long, but it is still the same order. Also, in order to layer these songs together, I'll have to pitch shift it down a little, like this. So now, a little depressingly, because of Taylor Swift uncreatively recycling the same tired, overused chord progression, we can now layer 3 of her songs on top of each other. Anyway, that's all I've got today. Luckily, Taylor Swift stopped recycling the same chord progression after a crazy 3 times and never thought to overuse it one more time. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, don't forget...
This love is good, this love is bad, this love is a life back from the dead. Oh, these hands that didn't let go free, and this love came back to me. Oh.
Well... Anyway, this song will also have to be pitched down a little for purposes of comparison, like this.
This love is good, this love is bad, this love is a life back from the dead.
Okay, now let's layer a mind-blowing, head-spinning 4 Taylor Swift songs on top of each other using the same chord progression, some half-time, some full-time. Luckily, having endured the dull experience of listening to 3 or 4 Taylor Swift albums, I can assure you that we have reached the end of the great Taylor Swift chord progression psycho nightmare, and can now all move on with our lives. Feel free to leave a comment below, and if you want to support the channel, you can...
It's alright, just wait and see. Your string of lights is still bright to me. Oh, who you are is not where you've been. You're still an innocent.
Well, anyway, pitched slightly downward, etc. And now we have a quite astonishing 5 Taylor Swift songs layered on top of each other.
It's alright, just wait and see. Your string of lights is still bright to me. Oh, who you are is not where you've been. Still an innocent. Yes.
Alright, I've played the same joke several times now, and instead of doing it again, I'll simply say that I have other videos you can check out, such as...
Are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods? Are we in the clear yet? Are we in the clear yet? Are we in the clear yet? In the clear yet? Good. Are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods? Are we in the clear yet? Are we in the clear yet? Are we in the clear yet? In the clear yet?
Okay, so I just want to say that addiction is a serious issue, and if you or anyone you know is suffering the same addiction to using the same chords over and over, like Taylor Swift, you can turn your life around. In the meantime, I think it's important that this chord progression knows that we're offering up our thoughts and prayers, and we hope that one day it will find peace and move on from the dreadful traumatic harassment by Taylor Swift. Anyway, here are 6 Taylor Swift songs layered on top of one another using the same chord progression.
Just wait and see.